Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Welcome back to World 360, our show at ThePrint, where we explain complex geopolitical issues from regions across the world that don't always hit the headlines. But today we're going to talk about a region that in fact dominated headlines 7 years ago, and that is Iraq and Syria, parts of which were captured by the Islamic State group in 2014. Today, of course, the Islamic State group has lost most of its territory that it once had, but it's still active in Syria, Iraq, Africa and other countries as well, and it also carries out deadly attacks. In 2018, US President Donald Trump declared that the group was defeated, and he also signaled his intention to withdraw all 2,000 US troops in Syria. So is the war on terrorism over? Not really. And it's especially not over for a particular religious minority called the Yazidis. The story of the Yazidis who live in northern Syria is a disturbing one. For decades, they've faced persecution and have even been referred to as devil worshippers. The women in this community have also been subjected to sexual violence at the hands of the Islamic State. But before we get into this, I want to clear up some confusion you may have about terms like ISIS, ISIL, and IS. I'm sure you've wondered, are these all different terrorist groups? Are they the same? What is the Islamic State group? So let's clear that up real quick. ISIS, ISIL, and IS are all names of the same group. UN and US officials generally use ISIL, which stands for Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant. Different English translations of the group's name have led to the term ISIS, which stands for Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, or Islamic State in Iraq and Al-Sham. The group itself has not used that name since 2014, when it shortened its name to Islamic State, or IS. The group has also been called Daesh, an Arabic acronym for the group's previous name, Al-Dawla Al-Islamiyya fil Iraq wa Al-Sham, but the group doesn't like this name at all, as in supporters of this group. So to be accurate for this video, it's always best to use the term IS or Islamic State group, and I'll be following that today. Okay, now back to the Yazidis. Who are they? Yazidis are a religious minority in Iraq. They are Iraqi citizens and their homeland is in the Sinjar region located in the north of the country. Sinjar is west of Mosul. Now in 2014, when the Islamic State group captured a third of Iraq and large parts of neighboring Syria, this included the Sinjar region. Now Yazidis were subjected to mass violence termed by the UN as genocide. The Islamic State group reportedly killed more than 3,000 Yazidis and captured 6,000, sexually enslaving many of the women and girls. Now, most of the Yazidis fled to pockets in southeast Turkey. There are about 70,000 to about 5 lakh Yazidis scattered across northwest Iraq, northwest Syria, and southeast Turkey today. Now, I guess the question is, the Islamic State group killed and enslaved several minorities when they took over, but why did they come down on the Yazidis so hard? So Yazidis follow Yazidism, a religion combining elements of Christianity and Islam, among others. So they're quite unique. In fact, children are baptized and the supreme being in this religion is known as Yazdan. Malak Taus is considered their god's alter ego, and his other name is Shaitan, which is Arabic for devil. This is the reason why Yazidis are often called devil worshippers, and this was the reason used by the Islamic State group to justify their atrocities against the minority group. Another thing to remember about this group is that unlike other minorities in the region like the Druze and the Alawis, you can't convert to Yazidism. You have to be born into it. So just to clarify, Yazidis are not Muslims, but they are, in terms of geography and ethnicity, Iraqi Kurds. Now, who are Iraqi Kurds? Iraqi Kurds reside in a loosely defined geographic region generally referred to as Kurdistan, which covers areas of Iran, Iraq, and Turkey. There's a very comprehensive BBC report, in fact, on the Yazidis, which I'll share with you if you'd like to know more about them. Now, under the Islamic State group, numerous Yazidi women and girls were taken in as sex slaves. It was such a problem that in March this year, the Iraqi government passed a major law promising livelihood support and reparations for survivors of sexual violence. In November 2015, Kurdish and Yazidi fighters, backed by the US-led coalition, retook the town of Sinjar from the Islamic State group, which was a big deal. Now, why are we talking about the Yazidis today, you might ask? Well, because they're a very good example of what's left in the aftermath of war. Though many Yazidis have started returning to Iraq from exile, 3,000 of them are still missing after being captured by the Islamic State group. In fact, a recent New York Times article showed how Yazidi families have been broken apart. Some family members are still being held in Turkish-controlled northern Syria, and in one example by a former Islamic State fighter who joined the Syrian National Army. The Syrian National Army, just for your information, is a Turkish-backed coalition of armed opposition groups that includes mercenaries and Syrian rebels. Now, some of these missing Yazidis are presumed to be either dead, sex slaves in hiding, are they brainwashed, whether they're being trained as fighters. There's no concrete answer. And usually, in dire situations like this, there are silver linings. For example, some Yazidi families have set up vast smuggling networks. There's in fact a book called The Beekeeper of Sinjar about a honey trader in Syria who used his connections to build a rescue network after 56 of his relatives were captured. So on that sort of hopeful note, I will say thank you so much for watching this episode. Do send in your suggestions, they really help me. For ThePrint, this is Pia Krishnankutty. Stay tuned.